Hey, everybody.
All right, hi everybody. This is Crypto Today in the USA. I'm Jason Lyerla. I'm here today with the president for 4New, Sharnash Sharma. Surash?
Yep.
Okay. Sharma, he's the president for 4New. Just to get this out of the way, this is for entertainment purposes only. I'm not telling you to invest in anything. I'm not telling you not to invest in anything. You guys are grown-ups. You do what you want. It's your own money. I'm not your banker. I'm not your dad. Whatever you do is on you, so don't come looking to me. If you are interested in what he has to say today, then he's doing his job. So I kind of wanted to do it in two parts. I wanted to let you kind of talk about what it is and what it's all about. Just a little disclosure, I am vested in your company because I find it to be one of the best ICOs out there, economically, eco-friendly wise, just for, there's so many reasons why I find your ICO so appealing. But before we get doing that, I had a question for you because of the things that have kind of gone down the last couple of days and the market's kind of been dropping. The SEC coming out and saying that regulations now for these exchanges to be able to operate within the United States. At the same time, Coinbase comes out and says they're going to have an index fund where you can invest $10,000 to $5 million, and as they add more coins and open up a new exchange or go to GDAX and put more coins on, your investment fund will include those coins that they're going to bring in. At the same time as the SEC says, you know, you're going to have to be regulated. And at the same time, they tell Polonix, who was bought by Circle, who just so happens to be owned by Goldman Sachs, of course, that anything that happened in the past, we're not worried about. As long as you get a license with us now, any wrongdoings or anything in the past, no matter if you keep them on staff or not, we'll forgive. So I was just kind of curious what you thought about that and where you think it's headed.
Absolutely. So first of all, Jason, thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely.
And you know, from our interactions, I've been very appreciative of your vote of confidence towards the project, and certainly the project needs you know, believers and faithful part of team members, so to speak, like yourself. You know, the way I've always envisioned this is, first of all, I've been in a lot of industries, and I've seen a lot of business in various industries. I've seen, you know, I've seen government's reaction to certain industries when there is a lot of frenzy and there's a lot of people getting involved in the particular industry. I saw this happen with substance abuse, mental health as a sector, which is healthcare. I've seen this happen with social media. I've seen this happen with Wall Street. I've seen this happen with real estate in terms of structured products. So, you know, there's nothing new that's going on here. These are cycles. And they continue repeating themselves over and over and over again. All that changes is the cycle in which the frenzy or the mania is most you know, prevalent in. So having said that, in regards to, first of all, SEC's view on all this, you know, SEC at the end of the day, in order to mobilize and bring action and like change the rules, or forget change the rules, to bring the rules, because there are no rules at the moment, it's going to require a massive concentrated effort. This effort's not, you know, a department or 20 people within SEC saying stop this. It requires a reach much beyond that. Unfortunately, when you look at our government right now, within the United States, for example, there's a lot of positions that are still open. There's a lot of people that are actually leaving the government, and there's a lot of confusion, noise, chaos, whatever the keywords you want to use, or the buzzwords that CNN and Fox are busy throwing out today. You know, the government's right now tumultuous. When the leadership is tumultuous, the instructions don't carry down with clarity.
Yep.
And therefore, SEC could have a, and by the way, SEC does not take instructions from anyone. It's a self-regulatory organization that governs itself. Nevertheless,
isn't that nice?
And Right. We cannot ignore the fact that people are working together, and one hand and the second hand are still part of the same body. So, what is happening is there is a lot of slowdown, there's a lot of complexity, rigmarole they're trying to get through. Also, when there hasn't been any rules, and rules are implemented for the first time, there's a concept in law enforcement and law that is called grandfathering in. So when a new law is passed on something, you're grandfathered into the new reality, and you're given a period of time to transition and adjust and evolve and adapt, because they do know that there are livelihoods that depend and get impacted because of these changes. So for example, if there was no rules, but all of a sudden there is a rule about something, they have to allow you 90 days, 180 days to adapt to it. Otherwise, what happens to your sustenance? What happens to your family that's been living off of this? They can't put you out on the street just because they changed the rule yesterday. And there would be protests pushing back on something like this. So when it comes to change, I'm highly confident that whenever SEC figures out what the right way forward is, then that's the way forward, and everyone will have time to fix it. I also want to highlight something else. It depends whose view you're looking at it from. IRS calls cryptocurrencies and bitcoins property. Commodities call it commodities. SEC calls it securities. So it's one of those things, much like a stem cell, it can be called just about anything. So if you call it a security, well, why isn't it a commodity? So now you have to give a good enough debate and a reason to explain to me that we are definitely not a security, we are a commodity. And the problem is this may very well be an ongoing thing for a significant period of time.
And that's the difference between like currency and utility coin.
Correct, exactly. And I'll take it a step further. How you designate it is basically how revenue is driven for those regulatory organizations. So let me elaborate. For example, if you're the commodities exchange and if I'm the securities exchange and we call something a security, well, all the fees that I'm going to charge for this industry are now going to flow to SEC, which will allow me to have bigger departments and hire more people. So I definitely want it to be a security because it falls under my jurisdiction. Similarly speaking, you want it to fall under commodities because guess what? You will drive the fees because all these ICOs, all these companies will have to pay you the fee. And the same is true of IRS. And whoever has the fee gets to hire more people. So the way I have envisioned law is at the end of the day, what you're really looking at is bureaucracy, right? It's a lot of layers. People have to, but I can get into a philosophical speech about all of that down the road.
So do you have a plan kind of in place? Because you see this coming down the road? So
yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So, like they say, precaution is always better than the cure. And having, been in enough transactions and having seen enough legal complexities on different jurisdictions and different courtrooms, I kind of have the recipe for what it needs to look like when laws do bring, when law is brought about this landscape. And it really goes back to one of two things, or one of three things. It's either a property, which I don't think it is, but an argument can be made to that effect, or it is a commodity, but it's really not a commodity. We are a commodity. You could say that electricity is a commodity because it is, right?
It is.
Electricity is a commodity. So then the question becomes security and commodity, and how are they different? Well, that is an academic debate, which I think I should sit down with you solo on, because
Sure.
I can fill up a whole hour on that.
I would love to do that.
Absolutely. And coming back to our current thinking on this is, you cannot be listed on an exchange without being considered a security, because listing on an exchange in itself is an act of speculative profit making and losses.
Now you're talking an SEC exchange compared to
Correct.
like Binance or HitBTC or.
Yes and no, and I'm not 100%. So let me take a step back, and I'm gonna, because I have to be very sensitive about the words I choose when I explain such complex subjects. So there is this idea or notion about utility, and a utility token by definition is a token that is utilized to gain access to your services. Okay, so if for example, I wanted to speak with Jason, okay, and Jason says, well, the only way you get access to me, Jason, is by buying the Jason coin. Okay, and if you're not a holder of Jason coin, I can't speak to you. And I say to you, okay, fine. And I give you a call. So, and I call you and I say, I got your token, and you speak to me, and that's golden. This is like the arcade. When you go to an arcade and they give you those little tokens and you can use it and you can play all the games in the arcade. That's a perfect example, actually, better than the Jason example.
But it doesn't work in any other arcade.
But it doesn't work anywhere else. That is what you call a utility token. You follow?
Yeah, I got you.
Now, if I took that token and I went to the parking meter and I say, hey, I want to use this token over here, the problem is you won't be able to use it. However, exchanges have come about that are saying, hey, we will accept this and we will give you a quarter that you can go put in the meter over there. And that's how you get the currency exchanged. Well, now SEC is saying, well, that's fine, but the quarter is fine, but where'd you get the utility token from, and is that really a utility? So it's really hairy right now, and this is a definition that needs clearing up on, because what these exchanges are promoting is speculative buying and selling of coins, much like stocks. And it is in that speculative buying and selling, that's where it's become a security. You follow my point?
Yeah,
because now there is profit and loss associated with something, and SEC is here to protect the little guy who fully doesn't understand the 20 million different ways he can get screwed at the end of the day. So SEC recognizes it because they've seen 20 million different ways a person can get screwed having been in a position of power and authority. So they basically are here to protect, which is a good thing. You know, whoever the regulatory body that gets involved, it's a good thing, because we do need adult supervision, we do need governance. There's a lot of bad actors right now.
It's a Wild West. It's a Wild West out there right now. So
Now, if the exchanges came at you with the following point of view, and they said to you, and this is me speaking academically, they said, okay, Jason, you've got a Jason coin, Saranj has got a Saranj coin, so my exchange, whatever, let's call it Newco exchange, will accept both Saranj coin and Jason coin, but to accept these coins, I need to have a treasury. You follow my point?
Yeah, I got you.
So like a casino, I would be playing with my own house money, and basically everyone with the Jason coin is coming in, tendering their coins in, and I'm personally remitting them cash, because I find some great value in Jason coin and in Saranj coin. So, you know, that is a money exchange service, and that is totally legit. There's no problems with that, because you're not buying and selling for speculative trading. The problem here is, and I think this is what SEC is the most frustrated about, is these exchanges have speculative traders coming in and pooling other people's money and then buying and selling off of that, and then you got all this hype and coins going through the roof, and then you got hacks taking place. I mean, it's just one disaster after another, and that's the problem there.
Okay. Well, thanks for taking the time to kind of go over that. I appreciate it. I know that's not why you came on here, but I was really curious on what you had to say about that. So let's go ahead and jump into For New. I've read your white paper up and down. I know you have a yellow paper coming out today. I don't know if you want to talk about that at all, or if you want to keep that zipped up.
Yeah, no, I'll share the details. Basically, you know, I've been listening to a lot of the questions that the white paper has generated over the last, 2-3 months or whatever it's been. And based on all those questions, what I recognized was there was a unifying theme within most questions. And if the white paper isn't answering it, then it's our responsibility to update it with that information. Yes. So really what the yellow paper is an updated white paper. And what's in it is as follows. Number one that has been added on is specifications of the plant, right? And what this is going to articulate is how much tonnage of waste can be accepted and what's the tonnage of energy that is produced, number one. Number two, I also want to highlight that the second issue here is the specifications associated with emissions. So the plant has a certain amount of byproducts and side effects that it generates, and there are certain standards that the European Union has to what the acceptable emissions are. The plant in this case is beneath all those levels.
So is that like the Paris Accord type of deal, or is that just the European Union has their own?
Just the European Union has their own things, right? And I'll look into that for you. I actually don't know it may be one of those treaties, climate control treaties, which is what EU may be enforcing. All I provided for the purposes of the white paper were the numbers by the government standards and the numbers that the plant is operating at, and we're amazingly like under the numbers. So very, very healthy for the environment, and therefore it'll pass everything with flying colors. Having said that, so I have that table that's been included. The other component that I've added, which, well, it's not added, it's an evolution. We talked about mining, but what we have done is we've gone ahead and identified what types of equipments and models we're going to be working with. One of them is an Antminer S9. Others are 1070 Ti's for their GPUs, and then the third thing we have is ASICs. These things are meant for mining Bitcoin and Ethereum and other cryptocurrencies.
I got a 1080 Ti on my computer. Two of them, so yeah.
In addition to that, we have a prototype for a shipping container that is being retrofitted with the insides to get the regulated, the required HVAC, heating, cooling system in there, keep all of that cold. Delivery date for this has been scheduled for June. So while I can say all of this in 2 seconds, it's taken me a little bit of time to articulate all of this on paper. Yeah. And this is why it's been, like a week and a half in the making. But that really is, when you look at what the story is getting closer to execution. And if we, our target date is the month of June. We haven't pinpointed the exact moment when we launch, but it's either going to be second week of June or anytime between second and fourth week of June. We are rolling out a party around the same time as a grand launch in UK. So folks will be able to, come to the site, take a look, what's going on. Obviously we're going to grow very fast, but we can't just grow with everything the very first instant. So what we've started off with is 2 containers right off the bat, and literally the next month adding on another 2 containers, and each container can house roughly like 2,000 units within one container. And so the white paper will have all the specificity. Obviously, thanks to the mining component, the revenue starts to roll right away. The way we have envisioned the glide path, if you want to call it, to go from being launched to full capacity, operational capacity, you're probably talking about 6 months. So June to Jan, that's the phase, each month doubling up on your amount of mining processing as well as power production. And really what we're getting at is by Jan, if we can hit our max capacity, then what we do is basically start thinking global expansion among some concepts, and then doubling up on the next plant. So there's a number of concepts that I've included in the so-called yellow paper or the updated white paper. But all it is bringing more definition to the conceptual amorphous white paper that was, version 1.0.
Okay, so as far as you're saying, like June's kind of the time frame you're looking at. Now, are people going to be able to stake their coins in June, or are they going to have to wait till the 1st of January, or?
So we'll start the staking right away. So in June, we'll start the staking right away. The way I look at our ICO, and in full transparency, we've actually raised most of our money from accredited investors. When I say accredited investors, I'm actually referring to institutions. In the crowd sale, we have been very cognizant to not push the crowd sale too much for 2 reasons. Number one being, we personally are believers in the philosophy that empty vessels make the loudest noise. And so from that philosophy, we didn't want to, go doing hype and general solicitation. So we didn't do some of the things you see most ICOs doing.
Yeah, like I didn't see you on Token Market. They have like an ICO, what's upcoming, what's going on right now, and I didn't see you on there at all.
No, you got to remember, this climate is such. No one knows how the cookie is going to crumble. It could be the SEC, it could be anybody. And quite frankly speaking, so if it's the commodities or if it's the SEC, last thing I want to have happen is we've raised this institutional capital, and we're talking to some very noteworthy, groups like there's a group that we're talking to which has over 350 members within it, and that group comprises of high-ranking developers from companies like Facebook, Google, and Apple. When you're talking to Silicon Valley presidents of that stature, and they're really helping us gain a lot of exposure with institutional folks, what I cannot do is be reckless and I just can't do it. It's not right. And so from my perspective, the goal was I have to, do it the right way. So from the crowd sale, ironically, we haven't been very successful in the crowd sale side of things. Our success has actually come from institutional side of things, and I'm totally fine with that reality. The fear that I have about a massive crowd sale, which gets uberly, successful, like you see in the case of Tezos or all these, companies that ended up raising 100 million, 200 million.
Yeah.
You invite trouble in your life shortly thereafter. And, I don't think that's necessary. I think the company, slow and steady is the way to grow. And institutional money is not here for a quick bang. I mean, they all have restricted coins. They can't just get in and get out. If you look at our lockup dates are January 2019. The reason we chose January of 2019 because we recognized from day one we were going to reach max operational capacity in January. So you're going to be at maximum cash flow, and therefore, there is no reason to be dumping coins. There is no reason to be creating any kind of hype or any kind of speculation. If you have the right concept, which I believe we do with an ecosystem like the one we do, and I'll talk about that in a minute as well. I think the strength of that fuels, cash flow within the ecosystem, and you can keep it a utility token, where it's a cash-producing utility token, and if priced right, who knows? Maybe hold on one second.
Sure. You want me to pause this for a second?
Can you hear that, by the way?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I get these messages and I have to be mindful.
No
anyways.
So do you think you'll meet your 300 million cap then?
No, so the 300 million was based on the 300 million was based on the kilowatts that the plant produces. Mm-hmm. We've raised enough capital to get the plants off the ground. Whatever doesn't get raised, we don't really need it. We can burn it all up, the coins, the tokens. The plant, you got to remember, the energy is being consumed by a mining farm, and the mining farm will generate income, and the profitability and the income from the mining farm can sustain future growth. Yeah. So I actually don't need unnecessary, financial stimulus into the company. Yeah. From a standpoint of, the 300 million tokens were, because it made the conversation simple to go to basically discuss one token is backed by 1 kilowatt of power. It allowed me to keep the math simple day one. Now, as we go through the process, unsold tokens being burned, coins getting doubled up in power, I think that's the way to do it, and I think that gives strength to the token, because the way I envision this coin over time is I envision it as an energy indexed coin. So as we go through life and as the company evolves to 2.0, 3.0, 4.0 versions of itself, what that basically means is we have opened up something in North America, and we were invited by Puerto Rico to seriously consider setting up our second site in Puerto Rico, and we seriously are considering it. So from that standpoint, we got the second site in the North American places, we got South America, we got, India or Asia, so as you start to geographically expand, what you're really getting is you're adding more and more weightage to the coin, and it kind of becomes like the global average energy price, right, in itself, embodied within the token. Now, this is highly evolved thought. That's not what this is today. Yeah. Today, all it is 1 kilowatt per coin. It makes it easy for me to explain it to the masses. In the crowd sale, whatever is unsold will be burnt. I've seen in some of the chats in the company where there have been discussions in regards to an investment portfolio of sorts. The way investment portfolios of sorts will work, in our opinion, is basically we have certain structures that I'm not ready to publicly release yet, but I know I've hinted at them in my private dialogues with you on occasion. Basically going the compliance route with SEC. Once you're fully compliant with Securities and Exchange Commission or the Commodities Board, whoever it ends up being, what we have the ability to do is utilize the approved currency as future investment portfolio for the company. But that's not for this second. And I definitely don't want SEC or anyone to think that I'm trying to utilize the token as a currency today, because then there's obviously certain questions that arise about this versus that.
Yeah.
So for all intents and purposes, at the moment, this is tokenized electricity. Electricity is a good. That it's our goods and services that we produce, and we are also consuming this electricity within our own ecosystem, which is that of a mining farm. So we are the producers and the consumers, and the token is the mechanism via which the transaction is occurring.
So, in one of the conversations I had with you was that the more you grow, the more sites you build, whether it's Puerto Rico or North America or wherever, you're not going to have ICOs for all these other ones. It's all going to tie into what you're doing right now, correct?
That's it. So the one-time buy, and I'm done. And quite frankly speaking, when we came into this marketplace, we came involved with institutional investors already. And the thought process was, if it's a massive crowd sale, that basically means a lot of people hold tokens, and that gives you what we call liquidity in a coin, because there's always some amount of people that are looking to buy and some that are looking to sell.
Yeah.
And so you want to have a token that is in the hands of many people.
Yeah, well, mine's not for sale.
Well, I'm sorry?
Mine's not for sale.
But I'm not desperate, and I didn't need to have a situation where 100 million had to be raised, because without which we can't proceed forward. So we entered this marketplace recognizing that energies are goods, and this marketplace needs our goods, and therefore apply to this and let the market adopt the idea.
I don't think it's just the marketplace that needs your ideas. I think it's the world that needs your ideas. Waste to energy is huge. I was watching the news last night on NBC, and there are seas of plastic in the ocean.
Disturbing. Makes me vomit.
Right?
I've seen images of just plastic floating right in the middle of the Pacific Ocean,
Yeah.
and you're like, how exactly did waste get there? And it's the ocean currents
Yeah.
that bring it all in a centralized place. The problem here, Jason, is as follows, right? First of all, you're right. There's a bigger story. It is waste, global waste, and it is a global energy shortfall. However, with crypto coming into existence, the usurping of the energy is so massive that if I had to sit here and predict, I can tell you 5 years to 10 years from now, if certain things aren't put into effect, crypto is over. And it's pretty much writing on the wall. However, what Bitcoin has done is started an energy arms race, in my opinion. I think the exchanges, the WePowers and the Power Ledgers of the world are just the first story. We are the 2.0 version. We are producers. Increasingly, you're going to see that more and more producers of energy are going to get in on this game. And they're going to get in pretty quick. Because when you sell your energy to a national grid, it's like paying the government, or accepting a paycheck from the government.
Yeah.
And that's great. It's reliable, it's stable, it's standard, but that's all it is. It's X amount, and it's nothing more, nothing less. I think what crypto mining allows for the entrepreneurial power players, it allows them to make the 100x returns, because crypto is that profitable, because it is that volatile. So in a nutshell, when we looked at the ecosystem from a business standpoint, it made total sense to, instead of selling it to the national grid, apply it to the community. And really you get two benefits out of that. Number one is the community gets free energy. Number two, what you get is you get,
Monero. You get Monero.
You get it. I'll into that.
So yeah, I mean it's so fascinating, because like you've got something, right? Like, and I was saying, like, Token Market has like all the ICOs coming up, and you can go through the 50 that are coming up, and maybe 4 of them make any sense, right?
Right.
And you're saying cryptocurrency, you know, 5 years from now could be big, could be nothing, right? It's the ones that don't make any sense, the ones that are scamming, the ones that are just, you know, they say they have a blockchain expert, and I go and I look on LinkedIn, or I look this person up, and you know, they just came out of IT school and they haven't done a thing that they're doing blockchain. You know, why would you? I don't get it. You know what I mean? I mean, there's companies like you. There's a company that I've been looking at called SkyChain from Russia, which is doing medical records.
I've been in the medical business, so I totally understand the importance of that. So I'm assuming the medical records are on the blockchain as well.
Yeah, and they can go anywhere you want with your private key, every doctor, you know, whatever. So, I mean, there's a few that like yours that I just... So tell me, you know, England, I noticed England ships a lot of waste. Bitcoin transactions take a ton of energy. You had me look a few weeks ago at, I forgot the site name, but I have it pegged there. Yeah, and it's like 15 households worth of energy for a Bitcoin transaction.
And now it's 27.
It's up to 27. See, that's insane. That's insane.
And Ethereum is catching up pretty fast as well. Ethereum was at 1.8 households, I think, like last week. And, you know, while Ethereum is where Bitcoin was 4 or 5 years ago, you know, and Ethereum's trying to get ahead of the curveball. They're trying to be proactive about this rather than reactive. Nevertheless, you know, there are challenges forthcoming soon. And you know, proof of stake is fantastic. It makes sense. Because I get this argument a lot. People say, well, what about proof of stake? It's going to, you know, revolutionize everything. And I wish it does, because it needs to, right? We need sustenance. I will say this, you know, proof of stake or proof of work, it doesn't matter to us what avenue these, you know, servers go down. The reason being, first of all, we're producers of energy, so we always have electricity. Number two is, I don't know if it's proof of stake or proof of work. They both are done on a computer, and the computer uses electricity, so you still need me in both those equations.
Exactly.
And I want to add the third component is, because of our ecosystem, you know, the waste that gets collected, we get paid to process the waste. The revenue that is generated is roughly 84 British pounds per ton. Now, the cost to operate the plant is roughly 65 British pounds per ton. So what you're looking at roughly is a $20 or 20 British pound per ton spread in terms of profitability. And this is just on the waste side of things. Now, the energy that is produced from this tonnage, and you'll see the numbers in the updated white paper today, that's all free energy. However, it's not only free, you've got the $20 profit here. So in essence, it's negative cost to energy. The energy is costing us negative $20, if I want to put it that way, because the plant's breaking even, but and if I apply the $20 profit from the waste side to the energy side, it's negative 20. So if it's a negative energy solution, I don't care how difficult mining gets in Bitcoin. I don't care that the algorithm is compounding on itself every 2 weeks and it's about to not be profitable anymore. I don't care that the proof of stake solution is coming out and all this other stuff. Is at the end of the day, I have a competitive edge that is so disruptive that it doesn't matter, you know, what one has to say. I'll just be able to mine better, mine faster, mine more. Bottom line.
Have the whales tried to swallow you?
I mean, eventually they'll try, but I can tell you, I myself am hungry to grow, so I ain't getting eaten up that easy.
You know, I was watching. You actually talked to Sean Davis, Crypto for the People, a while back, and I watched that interview. Yeah, and he was talking. I think it was yesterday about how do you eat an elephant one piece at a time, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're eating an elephant, getting this thing going, how much of that elephant have you eaten, and how much more do you got to go?
Right. So let me put it this way. I've already got the containers in prototype mode being developed. Number two, I've got the site ready to go. Energy is available on site to get started in the month of June. The hurdle here will be in terms of timing, two things. Number one is how long does it take to get a shipping container moved from one place to another, and the places are between Florida and United Kingdom, because the retrofitting is happening in Florida. I think that shouldn't be more than 6 weeks in today's shipping lanes and how fast ships are moving. So in 6 to 8 weeks, you're talking about, and by the way, when I get back from San Francisco, I was going to do I was going to go to this site where we have the prototype being developed for the shipping container and kind of do a live feed and showcase to everyone what it looks like so they can see the insides. We also have, the buying of the ant miners. Apparently, there's a lot of supply of them available right now, so Bitmain's willing to shoot it out relatively quick. When I say quick, again, 6 to 8 weeks. So these are some of the things we are putting together between now and the end of the month. So April and May will be spent waiting for these items to arrive to the site. We assemble them. So literally assembly starts to take place first week of June. So you're really talking mid to end of June, mining is triggered on. The plant is already triggered on because of the energy, and so the energy is needed to fuel the mining. With that whole ecosystem off to the ground, now mind you, we're not going full bore ahead. And we can't, because if you do that too fast,
you got to ramp it up slow. Yeah,
you have to ramp up slow. You could burn your equipment due to overheating.
Blow something up. Yeah,
theft can take place. These things are like gold machines. People like to steal them. So security has to be mindful. And like any startup, we're going to stumble. We will make mistakes. But we learn them relatively quick as long as we make a new mistake every day. And that's the philosophy. So, from that standpoint, we're looking at June as a very realistic within horizon start date, and then really a full-blown ramp up in Jan, and then it's off to the races from there. And really we start expanding outside United Kingdom to Canada, to South America, to Puerto Rico, and these are just some of the places. In South America, we're talking to a group down in Peru. So between Peru, Puerto Rico, Canada, that's quite a few locations. We've also received an indication of interest from a bank. It's a Finnish bank from Finland, whereby there's the technology and they're willing to lend us up to 80% in debt. Should this equipment be utilized in multiple sites for waste to energy conversion? Obviously, this benefits us greatly because instead of paying $100 million, I only need to pay $20 million, and the other 80 comes from the bank. And while there is interest, that's being prudent. Using the system in an eco-friendly sort of a way, and then applying it to the community which needs it the most.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what made you decide England first?
The amount you get paid for waste collection is one of the highest amounts in the world.
Because they ship so much off?
Yeah, because there's so much waste generated over there. They're running out of land. Their landfills are running out. So really, you're getting paid 84 British pounds per ton. If I went to some of the other countries, this model of negative cost to energy that I shared with you earlier, that may not be feasible.
Well, that's what I was going to ask about Puerto Rico. Can Puerto Rico sustain something like that and give you that kind of money for their waste, a country that's that poor? Or is it more you want the waste to convert to energy, give the energy to them so that you can do your mining farms type
Right. So one of the things in finance early in my career that I had to learn was there are many ways to skin a cat at the end of the day. And, when you enter the marketplace of, something like Puerto Rico, which falls under U.S. rule, there are a lot of tax benefits in regards to, incentives that can be given in order to bring business there. So even though you may not collect on the waste collection side as much as you would in, let's say, UK, it doesn't matter. The tax incentives are big enough to basically, compound over a longer period of time. I think they give you like 5 years of, like US law is something like 5 years of tax-free income. If you build energy plants here in the US. Again, I'm not an expert. I'll have to look into these things. But I know just about enough about everything at the, top level.
So are you going to the conference in San Francisco? Is that what you're doing there? Or?
Yeah, we're feeling torn. There is a conference in Puerto Rico taking place as well on 15th and 16th, and we have a conference in San Francisco as well.
The 22nd, 23rd, right?
Did they change it to 23rd?
I think it's the 22nd, 23rd. I might be wrong, but I know that I noticed that there was going to be somebody from the SEC is actually going to be talking at that conference in San Francisco.
Oh, okay. Then no. There's two different conferences in San Francisco.
Oh,
There's one on the 22nd and 23rd. There is one on the 15th and 16th, which is a Token Fest.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm, we are platinum sponsors at the Token Fest, and I would love to talk to the SEC, representative. And share some of our ideas that we are working on, so you can see, how we are kind of ahead of the times in this regard, and really setting the stage. And while certain things have been done already, there are still a few steps necessary to educate the masses on how to go about being compliant in this new age, so to speak.
Gotcha. So you're talking about June being, getting going. How is your blockchain, your separate blockchain, the KWK blockchain coming?
Right. So we've explored a number of technologies or enough platforms, a number of platforms. I think Neo was one of them that the developers were considering. There was another one by the name of Hyperledger, which is owned by IBM. There was a third one which was PIVX that we were looking at, and then the fourth one we were looking at, of course, Ethereum itself, doing like a fork off of Ethereum, and it's setting up master nodes and running our own transactions. The understanding is the development of it is 6 weeks. We have some developers that we're already retaining and hiring for purposes of development. We decided to wait until March 31st or earlier, depending on when we wrap up the ICO.
After the sale. Yeah.
And I have every reason to believe we're going to be done early. And quite frankly speaking, I think after we come back from San Francisco, based on certain closings that I'm anticipating to have done, I want to be able to be in a position to wrap it up thereafter. So, because if you're fully funded, there's no reason to keep it open anymore. Let the market enjoy the juice and the opportunity upon exchanges and things like that. But coming back to the point, so once the ICO is over, I would say around mid-May, you can expect, mid-May to end of May, you can expect the blockchain to be stress tested. We're not looking to recreate something new over here. I'm just looking to do a fork off of something I know already works. And given that Ethereum is the second most popular currency, I'm inclined to, focusing on Ethereum just because we're already an ERC20 token.
I don't know. Again, Neo's pretty good, man. Neo's pretty good.
Here are the pros and cons on everything, and I'm going to let the tech guys figure out what's the best way to build focus. All I can say is, here's the menu. How do we solve that? I want, whatever, souffle. Go cook it for me.
There were some people that were online that wanted me to ask you something that was on the Telegram. They wanted to know that they had heard that for some reason in the first year you're looking at clearing $70 million profit in the first year, or is this just FUD? And that was coming off the Telegram.
And that's a good question. And hold on one second. Can you still see my image, by the way?
Oh, yeah, I can see you.
All right, perfect. Yeah, because I was just handling some messages alongside. So let me break the math down. 25 megawatts per hour, and you will see these numbers appear in the amended white paper that's coming live later tonight. 25 megawatts per hour is a lot of power. That's what we're starting off with. And while I cannot start off with 25 megawatts tomorrow morning, with the power, I have the power, but I also need the equipment, the mining equipment to match it. To put it in perspective, 25 megawatts per hour can support 12,000 Antminers, S9 Antminers, and
how many homes is that?
35,000 GPU 1070 Ti's.
How many homes is that?
How many homes?
Yeah.
It's like 25. It's 25,000 kilowatts.
Okay.
How many homes in terms of how many homes? Well, 1 kilowatt can power for a day. So if you did the math, it's like 25,000 homes for a day.
So a small
That's
town.
yeah, it's a lot of power. In terms of the amount of equipment, and the miners who know what they're doing can number crunch this. If you look at how much power consumption one ant miner does, one S9 ant miner, it's 1375 watts. And then the other one is the GPU TIs, 1070 Ti's, that uses, I think, like 250 watts. And the specific exact numbers are in the white paper. If I'm off by a little bit, please don't crucify me, guys. But long story short being, when you convert that wattage into kilowattage, and then from kilowattage into megawattage, you're going to realize you need 13,000, or 12,000 ant miners and 35,000 GPUs to consume 25 megawatts per hour. Now, if you're consuming that much power, you're also producing that much mining transactions and mining fees. And so the ecosystem generates on every 25 megawatts per hour, 77 million in revenues per year. Now, if you multiply that again and again and again, when I say again and again, I mean because you have multiple sites.
Multiple sites, yeah.
Right? So if I had two plants in two separate locations, 25 megawatts both each, so you've gone up to 150 million more in revenues. Right. Now, for those folks who have talked about valuations and assumptions, if you looked at Snapchat, let's use Snapchat. It's not an accurate example, but I'm trying to simply highlight a concept. When Snapchat went public on the NASDAQ, they listed at 20 times next year's sales. That was the valuation the stock markets gave it. Forget crypto, which is like on steroids. I've seen or heard stories of 80 times, 100 times. I mean, these are disturbing numbers we are talking about next year's sales. So I just want to pursue like a conservative dialogue. Let's say if I was a public company, all right, on one of these exchanges like the NASDAQ, which would be in the realm of reality, right? I could go in and say, as a fast growing company, high growth emerging company, give me a value of 20 times next year's sales. Let's just put it at that number. 20 times next year's sales is 77 multiplied by 20. And you should get a number on that. I think the number is $1.5 billion roughly. So on a $1.5 billion market cap, by the way, this is not me making these numbers up. If there is another investment banker out there who can look at these numbers and confirm to me, I already know the numbers, but please reconfirm it to me as to what they are, because I'm 100% on my numbers. Now, Snapchat was just an example, and it's not a comparable example because it's not within this industry. I would need to see who a crypto miner is, who is a publicly listed company, which one does not exist, or maybe if it does exist, such as MGT or something, I need to understand which exchanges and what are some of the stock float issues and things along those lines. But 20 times is a very safe bet against a high growth emerging tech company. So with those as the outliers, or at least with those as the glide path, I applied it to our storyline. Now let's assume I'm wrong and 20 times is a far stretch. Cut it in half and cut it in half again. I can still sit here and pretty confidently defend that a $77 million number, which by the way, in the private world, if I was to go and sell my business today, I would ask 5 times EBITDA. I would say I make $10 million a year, therefore give me 5 times that number. And that's in the private realms. Yeah. So in the public realms, that number is on, again, 20, 40 times, easy. Yeah. So anyways, I'm pretty secure in my numbers. I think the company, all said and done, is over $1 billion company at the current level. We're not even talking about any future growth. Future growth just doubles it up that much faster.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, actually, that's pretty much it. I do have to get another call. I truly appreciate you having been patient with me, Jason.
Oh, man, it's no worries, man. I enjoy talking to you. I enjoy talking to you off of the air. So,
And to all those viewers, please be careful. There's a lot of spammers out there. I will never message you unless you message me on Telegram, and then we can have a dialogue and I'll maintain it. But you won't see me reach out. So if you see my name pop up all of a sudden sending you private messages or something, please know that's not me. There's a lot of people trying to be me. Often imitated, never
There's only
duplicated.
one you. There's only one you. Listen, man, I really enjoyed it. You have a great day. Good luck, and you know, if there's anybody else you know that wants to come on and talk about any other ICOs or anything, they're more than welcome to. I really enjoyed our time together. I love your company. I look forward to see where it goes in the future, and I see nothing but great things for you in the future. So good luck, man.
Yes.
You're welcome. Have a good day. Bye-bye.